What's up, everybody? Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream here, but this time it'll be on Saturday night instead of Sunday night, just so we don't have any conflict with Mother's Day or anything on Sunday here. So we'll do Saturday night, and I'm looking forward to joining all of you then, where we always just talk cars and hang out, so join if you can. But getting into the news here this week, the biggest enthusiast story here, at least, is that the Corvette gets a redesigned interior for the 2026 model year, much like was teased and suggested and spied. And as you can see, it addresses the biggest complaint that we all had, which was the wall of buttons. And so in its place is a lower grab handle, and those buttons have now moved to under the screen, which is now a 14-inch touchscreen with a new 12.7-inch digital gauge cluster and a 6.6-inch display to the left of the driver joining as well. The center console area now ditches the cover for the cup holders, gets a new drive mode selector, and a new wireless charging pad. Speaking of drive modes, there's also a new PTM Pro mode that turns every assist off other than the ABS system. And then lastly, there's new colors for the interior and the exterior, and you can now also get electrochromatic roof to tint the glass with the touch of a button. There's no exterior changes other than a few new options, and there's no word yet on when these will be arriving exactly or what the new price will be, but great improvements and good to see that. Jeep has also shown off some of the changes here for the 2026 Grand Cherokee refresh, and it appears to be a pretty mild refresh. The bumper and grille appear to be new, but don't change too much, and the headlights seem to be the same as before as well. But with the vehicle that sells as well as this is and as iconic as this is, the evolutionary approach makes sense, I think. And so inside, they are showing off a new screen along with some new switches above it, but less switches below it than before. And Jeep has promised that the 2-row and 3-row versions will continue, as well as the 4xe version, but the rest of it remains a mystery. There's been rumors that maybe the V6 goes away. We'll have to see about all that. But Jeep says it'll arrive later this year, and they haven't provided any kind of reveal date, though, yet for it. Now, in Europe, Jeep has revealed the 2026 Compass, and it's more evolutionary than I expected, honestly, but looks really good and is still unmistakably Jeep. But if you're America, don't get too excited about this, though, because Jeep told Motor One here that due to today's dynamic environment, they are temporarily pausing work on the next generation Jeep Compass for the U.S., including activities at the Brampton assembly plant. So this is tariff related, and it's surprising though, because they sold over 111,000 Compasses in the U.S. last year. It actually was a sales improvement because I think more and more people are just desperate for a cheaper Jeep, and this is as low as they could have gone. And so, with the Compass going away and this new one seemingly now delayed for a while, not good for Jeep sales, I think. But hopefully we get this eventually, but for right now, the European versions are being built in Italy, so that is obviously out, and the version for us was supposed to be built in Canada, but that's obviously not working out because of the tariffs either here, and so they'll need to find room in another existing U.S. factory if they actually want to build it here anytime soon. So we'll see what ends up happening with that, but what a headache. Anyway, as far as the European version here, which still should be fairly similar to whatever we do get eventually someday, it's on the STLA medium platform and is 6.1 inches longer than the old one, which gives it over 2 inches more rear legroom and slightly more cargo space. Even though it's just a Compass, the most rugged versions, they say, will get 7.9 inches of ground clearance and can actually do a little bit of off-roading and even waterfording, they're quoting a depth of there. And inside, they all get a short and wide 16-inch touchscreen and a 10-inch gauge cluster, and there are a few buttons still on the inside as well, this one thankfully, and mechanically there's a 145 horsepower mild hybrid gas engine, a 195 horsepower plug-in hybrid version, and then 3 different electric versions, with a front-wheel drive version doing 213 horsepower, the all-wheel drive version doing 315 horsepower, and a top 375 horsepower version for some reason in a Compass, which seems kind of wild, and I'm not sure how many people have been looking for that in a Compass, but here you go. So the front-wheel drive version gets a smaller 74 kilowatt-hour battery for 311 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle in Europe. And they don't state the battery size for the all-wheel drive ones for some reason, but the 315 horsepower one they say is rated at 404 miles of range, so clearly a much larger battery there. And there's no range given for that fastest one. They'll all be doing 160 kilowatt peak fast charge rate for a 20% to 80% charge in about 30 minutes, which is, average, but nothing amazing either. And ordering is already open in Europe with deliveries beginning in the fourth quarter. So interesting to see that, and hopefully American buyers don't have to wait too long for this to come to the States. Another Stellantis product that first debuted elsewhere and may eventually come to the US here now is the Ram Rampage, which is the small Fiat-based truck that's sold in South America. And when it debuted back in 2023, I said it makes a ton of sense as a Maverick competitor since it's also only unibody. And while it's been about 2 years now with no sign of this thing anywhere in the States here, that may change because Mopar Insiders discovered a trademark patent for the Rampage that was filed back in March of 2023, but just got granted here in the US. And I'm not sure if that's part of the holdup, as they were waiting 2 years on a patent to get granted or what. But so this does pave the way now. The fact they applied for this in the US means they are at least strongly considering it in the US and want to protect it in the US. So it seems like we may actually be getting this here. And again, it's been 2 years in the making, supposedly. So yeah, and if this does come here, though, this design's already 2 years old, and, if there's no U.S. production happening anytime soon, then this is kind of setting up, to me, to seem like a Ford Ranger kind of scenario, where if you remember the first return of the Ford Ranger we had here before this new gen version was like a, very old, European version that had been around for several years already, and then we finally got it after a bunch of certification processes, and it just, it filled the gap until the actual new Ranger could come, but, a lot of people were underwhelmed by it, myself included, with the old interior, older styling, and all that. And so we'll have to see what happens with this one here. But if this is the mid-sized truck that they were promising would come to the Belvidere plant during the union agreements that happened back at the end of 2023, then that truck, they already said, is not scheduled to come online until 2027. So another 2 years from now or more. And so... and also, again, if everyone's been hoping for a mid-sized Ram and then they give you a rebadged Fiat... I don't imagine Mopar fans are going to be very excited about that. It's certainly going to be a nice addition, but I think this would be a great addition as a Maverick competitor, not as a Ranger competitor. And they need to have an actual body-on-frame mid-sized truck. Maybe that's something they're also working on as well. I don't know, but still good news if this Rampage comes. I just hope that they don't try and market this as, some type of, tough mid-sized truck, because it's probably not going to be quite that, but could still be really great for those who can't afford, a full-size Ram there. So anyway, we'll have to wait and see, but very interesting to, at least see that progress there. Toyota this week has revealed a refresh for the Corolla Cross for the 2026 model year. So it's pretty simple. It gets sportier bumpers on the hybrid version and more rugged bumpers on the gas version. There's also new wheels and the option for the Cavalry blue color, which is fantastic. Inside, it gets a bigger 10.5-inch touchscreen, an option to upgrade the 7-inch gauge cluster to now a 12.3-inch one in the higher trims, and a new center console area with a shifter from the RAV4, it seems, as well as new button, port, and cup holder positioning there to improve things in that area. And mechanically, it's unchanged, meaning your choice of either 169 horsepower naturally aspirated 4-cylinder or the 196 horsepower hybrid, which is definitely the one to get in my book after spending a week with that. But there's no pricing given yet for this new one, but they say it'll be arriving later this year sometime. So cool to see that. Toyota has also revealed a new FX Edition trim of the regular Corolla hatchback for the 2026 model year. So as you can see, it has the option of this orange color called Inferno, those white wheels, which is, I don't even know the last car company as far as mainstream ones that offered white wheels. I love it though. I think it's really fun. There's also a new rear spoiler and a retro badge. Inside, it gets unique seats pretty surprisingly, that I think might actually be the base GR Corolla seats, but I'm not totally sure. It also gets orange stitching, and it's all meant to harken back to the FX16 Corolla of the 1980s. And mechanically, it's all the same, and it's based on the SE trim, but only 1,600 of these will be made here for the US, and they'll be arriving this fall, but there's no pricing for them just yet. And after recently revealing the gas versions of the A6 sedan and the A6 Avant over the past couple of months here, this week Audi has showed off the plug-in hybrid versions, which we all knew were coming. It's just something they want to do a slow rollout on here. So they're the same as what we recently saw on the A5 plug-in hybrid I just covered not too long ago as well, where you have both based on a turbo 4-cylinder engine with either 295 horsepower or 362 horsepower, thanks to, again, electric motors and a larger battery that provides 66 miles of electric range now on the easier European test, but still, a big improvement. I think about 45% larger battery than the old plug-in hybrid ones. And they also say that all these PHEV versions will also get some sportier stuff, like the S-Line trim as standard, as well as sportier wheels and suspension. And you even get a 4-wheel steering as standard here on all of these. Otherwise, though, it's the same as other A6s. So you can go watch my video on that if you want to hear all the details on the new A6. But great to see Audi continuing to roll out these plug-in hybrids here. And these will begin arriving to European customers this summer. And we'll have to wait and see if Audi, decides to send the plug-in hybrid version here to the States, and what they end up doing about any of these imports from Europe. So we'll see, but great to see that there for Europe. And Mercedes-AMG has also shown off their own electrified sedan here this week, although it's still under camo and still a teaser leading up to the full reveal happening soon. And so this is their electric halo model here. We still don't actually have a name for it, but last week we got our first teaser image, and this week we get better images that show the production headlights and taillights. And for those that missed last week, this is going to be that new thing that's on the AMG EA platform. It's going to have axial flux motors, be very expensive, very fast, likely around 1,000 horsepower or so, and should really, again, just kind of serve as that new halo model here for AMG. And so cool to get those extra shots here, and looking forward to seeing the full reveal here soon. And one electric halo model that we are not getting a reveal of this year, even though we thought we were, is this new electric Ferrari. So back in February, their CEO claimed that it would debut in October, but now on their recent Q1 earnings call, the CEO revised that, saying that they'll only be showing the technological heart of the vehicle in October, and then followed by the look and feel of the interior design concept early in 2026, with the actual full reveal now happening in the spring of 2026, and deliveries starting in the fall of 2026. So, I mean, maybe there's a miscommunication previously, but this sounds like it's the Ferrari way of delaying a car. And instead of being like, it's coming out in October, it's like, we need another 6 months or so. So let's, do this long teaser campaign instead and show it out, little by little here. So we'll see. But I mean, it's, Ferrari is never going to admit that, I suppose, just that's the Ferrari way. But honestly, there's no shame here. I don't think there's anyone that's, waiting on the edge of their seat for an electric Ferrari. I think, this is something, as we see with the other, electric hypercar and supercar demand being very low. This is not something that these types of buyers really want. And the ones that might have already lined up for this thing are simply doing it, I'm almost guaranteeing you, it's because they want to be in Ferrari's good graces. They want to get the next special gas power thing that's coming. And so it's like a lot of these other Ferrari allocations where you take the boring stuff to get your way worked up to, the actual high-end ones that are the ones you flip for bunches of money and all that. So it's all part of the game here, and so I think that's, the only people that are probably anxious for this, but, maybe there's actually a few people that are excited about it, but I think they're going to be fine waiting another, 6 months or so here, it seems. So anyway, interesting to hear that. Volvo this week has announced that the XC70 nameplate is returning, but instead of being a lifted wagon like it was back in the 2010s here, this one looks to be a larger SUV here that I guess will slot in between the XC60 and EX60 that's coming, and the XC90 and the EX90 that we have here. And surprisingly, it's actually an extended range plug-in hybrid, they say, not an EV. And that's kind of surprising considering, again, all the other new Volvos that have been coming out of EVs here. But The only other detail they've provided so far is that it'll do 124 miles of electric range, but that's likely on the easier Chinese test cycle. But this also suggests that, one, this is primarily for China for now, if not exclusively. It could even just be a long wheelbase version of the EX60, which is what Chinese buyers always like, that longer wheelbase. So maybe that's partially what this is, and it's also, again, offering a plug-in hybrid version of that. And it also likely means this range extender is probably going to be the type where it's not connected to the wheels and is just powering electric motors. And, those types of things are very popular and very common in China. And we'll eventually get that way here in the States. We don't know if this is coming to the States or not. I don't think it's been ruled out yet, but I don't think there's been any promises either here. So hopefully we'll get some more info on this later this year. But interesting, at least to see this name coming back. It's a fun little surprise, and cool to hear about that. Another vehicle making a very surprising return is Yugo. Yes, you aren't going crazy. I said Yugo. So the brand that's famous for being one of the worst cars of the 20th century. I don't know who thought bringing this back was a good idea. You're actually starting with negative equity. Like, you'd be better with something that no one has ever heard of before, like a Fila or something, than starting with a negative position with Yugo and trying to lift and change everyone's minds as far as the perceived notions about this brand. But anyway, so this week, Yugo, I feel like I've really seen it all at this point. They showed off a scale model of this vehicle that's returning, which looks similar to a two-door version of the Hyundai Ioniq 5. And honestly, it looks good. If you didn't have the Yugo name on there, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool little hatchback. Excited to see it. And, again, maybe it will be cool. We'll have to see. I don't think we're going to get it in the States. But as far as this vehicle, it actually would be well suited for the States, because they say maybe an electric version will come eventually, but they're planning on launching this in about 2 years or so, supposedly, into production, offering both a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder and a turbo 4-cylinder version. And again, they said there's a possible electric version down the road. But it appears, based on the way they're doing, all the media and stuff, it seems like it's only a European thing. So if you're one of the few people on Earth that were hoping for the return of the Yugo brand, sounds like you're out of luck if you're in America. But I don't know. Maybe if it's cool enough, people won't care about the name. And obviously there's probably nothing, as far as even the management or anything about the old car. It's completely, everything is new and fresh. It's just kind of strange. Like, why pick up old IPs when you can just do something new? But anyway, very interesting to see that. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comments below. And there's finally some good news for Mitsubishi here this week. So they announced that they will be getting a version of the new Nissan Leaf here by the summer of 2026, actually. So coming, about a year away, we'll finally get a new Mitsubishi in the lineup here. And they say this will be coming to the US too. So this isn't just another thing for the rest of the world. A new EV probably won't be the money printer that Mitsubishi needs, but at least it's something new on the lots to, toss these poor Mitsubishi dealers a bone so they don't have to sell only Outlanders anymore. It's not, we don't have a whole lot of details on it just yet, but judging by the future lineup teaser that they reposted along with this announcement, it looks like it'll probably be the one with the C-shaped headlights there towards the back. We'll have to see, but that looks similar to the lighting we have on the front end of the new Kicks, or the new Leaf here, which we only have the one image of the Leaf, and we have a few vague little details about it. We don't have a whole lot of info. That's coming in June for the Leaf, but it's assumed that all that stuff will also transfer over to this Mitsubishi, and both cars will share the same platform with the Nissan Ariya, so it gives you an idea of probably the kind of charge speeds, range, battery packs you can possibly expect. Might be smaller as far as battery if it's a smaller version of that platform. We'll see, but anyway, whatever it is, it can't come soon enough. Something new with the Mitsubishi badge is a very low bar, but that's all it takes to have me excited for Mitsubishi to have a little bit of hope here in the States. Again, assuming they can actually bring it here and all the other stuff. But anyway, McLaren also had another shakeup here this week, getting rid of their old CEO effective immediately and bringing in Nick Collins to replace him. And so the former CEO, Michael Leiters, only held this position for 3 years, and says he's confident that the business is on a strong path for success, but not with him, I guess, because if so, they wouldn't have fired him. This sounds amicable, so I don't think it's, was anything crazy. Just kind of interesting that usually these things don't happen immediately. But, yeah, it seems cordial enough with him wishing everyone involved the very best in the future. And the company likewise saying, he was great and didn't give any reason why they got rid of him, but he was great. And so anyway, this new CEO has spent 9 years at JLR and over 20 years at Ford of Europe as well. So hopefully, he can continue the hard work here of getting McLaren back to hopefully a better financial position. And hopefully they, come to better terms here in the future. And we also have a little bit of an update here on the tariff situation for the UK in particular. So the UK has been the first country here to manage some kind of deal. It's not finalized yet, but it seems like they've come to an agreement with Trump to lower import taxes for cars and for steel and a few other things here for the UK. And so this has caused Trump to agree to lower the auto tariffs down to 10%, which still is not good news for car buyers. It's still not good news for car companies. A 10% tariff is still, that's a big price increase. You take 10% of any vehicle on the market, a $30,000 car, that's $3,000 more. That's not chump change still. This is an improvement, but, it's far from being out of the woods here. And so anyway, that's assuming, again, this all gets finalized and all the details get ironed out, which it sounds like they haven't really, figured all that out yet. But one detail we did get is that there's going to be a limit of 100,000 vehicles exported to the U.S. each year from the UK. And they can't go beyond that. If they do, then they go back up to, I think, the 25% tariff that they had, obviously, before. So Oxford Economics says that only 92,000 cars were imported from the UK last year. So there's potential for a growth of 8,000 units. But that this really kind of caps growth for these companies as well, because now they actually can't export more than that amount of vehicles to the US here. So I guess it's very appropriate for the times that the best that these UK car companies, at least as far as export volumes, can hope for is to merely tread water and basically have no growth, but at least if they can maintain the volumes they've currently been doing, hopefully that'll be good enough for them. But, again, this is far from a win. And it's just a shame that, I'm glad that they're at least getting, this. We'll see. I'm sure eventually this deal will, work out to other companies, I'm guessing. I doubt it'll be only the UK. But for the time being, this does give the UK a unique advantage that other countries don't have. But don't expect that to, again, stick around, I'm guessing. If it does, then it'll be a manufacturing boom here for the UK, with every spare factory getting a bunch of car manufacturing equipment shoved into it and trying to, remanage everything to get exported out of the UK. But anyway, this also, though, further validates Jaguar's push to, go to a low volume, high profit thing. And, now I'm sure that the UK export industry is also just very thankful as a whole, because this leaves more room for Aston Martin and Mini and everyone else to import, because, the Jaguar volumes are going to go way down. But, if Jaguar is going to be fine with these high profit things, then, this is and not like they knew this was coming, but Jaguar actually now it seems like they've played this perfectly. They don't want to sell tons of cars because they're not able to, because of these restrictions. And so, selling even 500 cars at these, really good profits to super rich, eccentric people, I think is probably actually the best way going for Jaguar right now. And so we'll see if other companies, I know Aston Martin said they're going to reduce the amount of exports to the US as well as a result of this. And, obviously the 10% thing might change that course a little bit, but, any kind of extra tariff is just going to be bad news either way. So anyway, that's very interesting. Now, in exchange, the UK is lowering some of their tariffs on beef and ethanol and agreeing to buy more of that stuff from elsewhere, among other things. And, we'll see, again, if other countries make similar deals. But, still not ideal. An improvement, though, and I'm happy to see it for the UK. If, again, we have to be thankful for the scraps here, I guess, it's a little scrap that's been tossed to them to hopefully, improve things for their country. And, best of luck to everyone involved having to deal with the U.S. government. And for the last news story here, the EU has finalized their temporary relaxation of emissions regulations here in Europe that I covered previously back when it wasn't finalized yet, but was something that seemed like it was going to happen. And so now it has been finalized. And so what this means is that despite the new regulations that actually went into effect this year for stricter emissions, the companies are now able to meet the 2025 standards by getting their average emissions from 2025 to 2027 up to that 2025 level. So they have the next 2 years here to further raise that. And I think a lot of these car companies are saying, hey, look, we got more electrified stuff coming anyway. This is going to improve. And so even if we're underperforming this year, we will, again, raise that average the next 2 years and hopefully get to a place where, again, you can meet those 2025 standards. So nice to give them a little bit of a reprieve there, because clearly they're trying, they're, doing their best to get all this stuff electrified as fast as they can. And I think this is, very much appropriate and, very good to see. But for the companies that are really behind, it means the next 2 years, they got to ramp up electrification like crazy, or just way more efficient gas engines in order to, get that to where it needs to be before they, again, start getting those fines here. Now, in 2030, things will continue to get stricter and stricter as far as emissions regulations, and the 2035 gas ban is still happening for new vehicles in the EU. Now, there's still the exemption for synthetic-powered vehicles, synthetic fuel-powered. So I think that's a giant loophole. That means that anything that says, well, look, it runs on synthetic gas and gives you all the specs for synthetic and all that, which is going to be the same performance as regular gas anyway. That still is going to be, as long as it's shipped with synthetic, regardless of what people put in it. If it's maybe, I don't think they have any way of actually, prohibiting it from running on regular gas. Maybe they do, I don't know. But either way, there's still that giant loophole there still. So not all hope is lost, especially for those who love European supercars and stuff. But good to hear that, again, they got a little bit of a break here for the next couple of years while they continue to work hard to, get that stuff better. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have a bunch of new members that were able to join here this past week. Thanks to the very generous membership gifting here that was done during last week's live stream by Lanswath, Vayetzi, and Kyle. So thank you all so much for your generosity. I really appreciate it. I'm sure all those members are able to join and rejoin. Also really appreciate it as well. And also I want to give a big welcome here to those new members are able to join for the first time here. So I want to give a big welcome here to David Kenyon, to Hot Wing Racer, David Ramos, Carter Nave, Eel Pitt, and Dante. So I hope you're all enjoying the membership perks so far. Be sure to join in on Saturday night's live stream here, where those members always do get that party answering, as well as all the other perks that come with being a member. Check that out on the membership page. And for anyone else that'd like to get that party answering, as well as all the other perks that come with being a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.